friends. Welcome back to another episode of The Mind of Reese. Today, I felt so called and so just excited to come on here and film today. I actually had other things on my heart to do today, and I was like, nope, I got out of meditation and just knew that I needed to come here and really express what I channeled through in meditation. Now, I love meditation, as you all know, if you've been with me in spaces, if you are one of my members of, any of the coaching spaces that I have, or even if you're a tattoo collector and you've been tattooed by me, you know how much I love to get in the body and somatically, really just heal the self through the mind. And so today we're going to get into timeline jumping. Now, what timeline jumping is to jump to another dimension of time. This is like quantum leaping, quantum jumping. Every time I say you want to quantum leap your business, this really has to do with what's happening within the body, emotionally, mentally, and really just channeling those different parts there in order to open yourself up to these other dimensions. Now, I know this sounds a little out there and woo, but as a spiritual person, you'll get it. But at the same time, the reason why I love spirituality is because of the fact that it's rooted in science, unmeasured, because we don't have the tools yet to measure it. And so we think of everything as woo-woo or magic or things like this, but as we begin to cultivate the tools to measure certain things, we're actually realizing that this actually is really rooted in science and how we can use quantum physics and quantum mechanics and energy, really how we can utilize that in everyday life and how to really relate it back to your business, relate it back to your life. And what I love about this is that it's like I've utilized, my spirituality as, no, I wouldn't say I like the terminology strategy in my business because it does put me on a different playing field than most people play on, right? So I'm utilizing all things as well as the material world, not just the material world. And this is what I love about quantum physics. And I'm going to really tie it back to how it relates to your life and business. And I first just want to preface the fact that I've been obsessed with quantum physics, quantum mechanics, neuroscience, probably for the last 10 years, ever since I became an entrepreneur. When I first started as a fine artist before I became a tattoo artist, and as a tattoo artist that's become a coach and has basically I like to look at it from a perspective of one of my one-on-one VIPs. She says she's like an octopus and she has so many different ideas and so many different things she wants to put her little tentacles on. And I think that that's really what an entrepreneur is all about. It's just having all of these really beautiful ways to share your creativity and to serve your people. And so this is what I really, really enjoy. I really, really enjoy understanding this from a scientific perspective, as well as trusting and having faith that whatever really is within me that I feel really good about, that is yes, this is my truth. I'm going to move in alignment with that. And then over time, as science continues to make new headways, you start to find out that these feelings, these energies, these things we can really morph and move and shift in our bodies and in our minds and in our energetic bodies. It's really just it becomes more scientific and we get to understand it a little bit better versus just knowing deeply. But what I love about the knowing deeply first is that we get to play with it before it gets to be proven, right? It's like moving before you have the evidence of something. So what I would like to start off with is just really thinking about, potential and possibility, taking a deep breath and just really settling into the idea that there's infinite potential and possibilities all around you, right? I want you to imagine the feeling of falling in love and what that feeling feels like in the body, how expansive that feels, how good it feels, how joyful, how fulfilling, how exciting it feels. And when you feel that in your body, you've got no room to really think about failure, fear, or projecting failure or fear, a fear of failure, really, in your business and in your growth. And, on a conscious level, we're constantly, when we're in the conscious mind, right? The 10% of our brain that runs things, the conscious mind, when I'm thinking about, like I'm aware of, I do want, we all have this idea that we do want more money, less stress, more presence, forward thinking, innovation, creativity, skills, joy, fulfillment, passion, pleasure, like all of these things we have in our conscious mind. But there is a lot of things that are happening beneath the surface, like the fear of not having enough clients, so they're not good enough or worthy enough, or, just things that bring us back to scarcity and lack. And so when you are head over heels in love, like when you are head over heels romanticizing love and light into your life, right? Like you're head over heels in love with like it's just someone. And then you shift that feeling and point it back to you. And you're like, that feeling in your body is happening. Whether you're thinking about like a loved one or something like that. Like when I think about romanticizing my life, I think about the life that I'm currently living. Like I am a masterful manifester. I get made fun of by Kayla, my assistant, all the time. I will say something out loud, and so, there's been many times where she will literally tell me 2 seconds later that it happened, and then she'll start asking me as though I'm Santa for all the ways she wants me to manifest new things for her. She's like, yeah, I want a pony. I want, she said to me one chin, but that's a joke for another day. She's such a dork. And, I want, my, she's like giving me all the list of things she wants because she just sees that like, Reese, you just manifest so well. And so when I think about this, it's like, there is this sense of like, when we romanticize the life, right? Like I'm romanticizing, like when I think about falling in love, I think about when I first met my partner and the 5 months that we, basically had a non-physical relationship because we were doing long distance, and our first, our first dates were over the phone, and then our actual first date was like when I went to a convention in Ireland. And so it was like one of these things where as I'm falling in love with this person, it was just like, oh my gosh, this, it's like that idea, the movie type love. You're just like, yes, yes, yes. And you're just romanticizing it and all those feelings that are happening in the body. It's like we can feel that, right? And then what if we were to turn all those feelings back to the things that we're doing or back to ourselves? Like, oh God, it's just like that feeling is in my body. Just because, yes, like there is this sense of like, okay, I'm thinking about my handsome man, but those feelings are in my body, right? I'm thinking about like how it feels in my body. Now I want you to turn that back to like falling in love with the potential, right? Like when we do this, we're falling in love with potential and possibility, right? And when I point this back in my business, I think about like the same thing I feel like falling in love is like all the people I can help serve, all the artists I have served, all the people I get to serve, all the people I haven't reached yet, like all the people I get to impact, to expand and help guide and elevate and, just really give back in such a beautiful way in their own growth, whether that be in their business or in their personal development. Like that makes me feel so fucking good. So like, I want you to think about your life and I want you to think about your business and how does it feel to help people in your service or in whatever in the services that you have, if you're tattooing, if you're coaching, any of the things that you're doing, like really falling in love, that expansion in the body, like how good it feels to help guide people, to like mark people for the rest of their lives with your art, right? Put that thought process, that feeling into everything you do versus into the projected thought of failure. Now, the majority of people live on the spectrum of conditional happiness. It's like, I'll be happy when I have the house, or I'll be happy when I have the money, or I'll be, fulfilled when I get this many clients. I will feel safe when I'm booked out 6 months in advance. I will feel secure when I have this XYZ amount of money in my bank at all times. I will be, and we're making it all conditional based on something outside of us, right? So it's like when we think of quantum jumping, timeline jumping, we got to think about it. So from quantum physics perspective, now I'm going to try to take this down to the very, boil this down to as easy as it is to understand this. But in quantum physics, the belief is, and it's proven, not just a belief, it's proven through science that everything is happening now. And that there are infinite variations of yourself and of experiences, right? It's not, so the way that they look at it is that our minds create a linear time frame, past, present, and future. But according to quantum physics, proven in quantum physics, everything is actually happening now. So if I'm thinking of my past, something that happened 5 years ago, I'm actually experiencing that past in the present moment. If I'm thinking of the future of I'm going to get this coffee at Starbucks, get my basic bitch coffee that I always love to get, half calf, half sweet, vanilla with oat milk. I got a list of things that I got to make sure that gets done right, and it does every time. I'm thinking about that coffee 10 minutes from now. I'm experiencing that coffee not 10 minutes from now. I'm experiencing now in the present moment. So when we think about quantum physics, what that teaches us is that when we think about the past, it's happening in the present. When we think about the future, it's actually happening right now. But our mind creates a linear time frame of past, present, and future. Quantum physics, it's all happening now, stacked on top of each other. Think about it like a layered cake, just like frosting, cake, more frosting, maybe some fruit. We got another layer of cake. We got frosting, maybe more fruit, and another layer of cake, right? And then the accoutrements on top. So it's like a layered cake. And those layers are dimensions of time. So everything is always happening right now. And if you think about it, there are infinite realities and dimensions of time. And when we understand this to be true, we can choose a version of ourselves that has all the joy and the expansion and start showing up as that person now. And I know that sounds really, really gnarly. So it's I think about it, it's not that you are choosing to create a reality by doing something different. You are just choosing a different version of yourself that already exists. So when you decide to identify as something different, and I go over this a lot in my membership in the ARC. The ARC is the space for when you're really, really trying to shift your identity, shift timelines, really understand how to heal emotional wounds so that we can step into these other dimensions and step into these other timelines. Right? And so this is what we're doing in the ARC, and this is what I love to play with. But I always talk about the identity of, I always talk about in my spaces, I talk about the identity of a tattoo artist versus the identity of a spiritual entrepreneur. And they're very different. And the way that I coincide this particular analogy or this particular identity shift is going from a person that has a 30-day fad diet to a person that believes that to the identity of the athlete. So when I think about this, it's okay, if I'm going to shift, there are going to be versions of me, like the stacked layered cake. There's going to be the version of me that thinks of myself as only the fad diet person that takes the 30-day fad diet of keto and only does keto and da-da-da-da, or the person that's only I'm gonna do, I'm gonna only do juice for the next 30 days and try to lose 10 pounds. And that's the version of there's that version of me. And then there's another part of the layered cake where there's a version of me that is the athlete, the one that looks at, physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional health as a lifestyle. And I'm okay, yes, I'm going to train and I'm going to hold myself to a level of standard and I'm going to make this sustainable and look at this long term. So it's the same thing with tattoo artists. Like the tattoo artist is the type of person that's like, you know, the one that thinks is only a tattoo artist. I look at it from like the starving artist archetype, where it's like, okay, how am I going to get to the next dollar? There's a version of me that thinks of the next dollar. I'm like, okay, I just need to pay this one bill. And once I get this bill, I'll feel better, la la la. And then there's this spiritual entrepreneur where I look at it from a perspective of like, okay, I'm actually looking at the way that I make money. Yes, I might not be booked out this much in advance, but if I continue to get better at the skills that I'm at, whether that be marketing and tattooing, I'm going to create longevity within my career, and I'm going to really look at this long term. So there's that version. And then there's all these other versions in between. Where it's like, you know, the version of me that doesn't spend any time with family because I'm working so much because I need to make this work. And then there's the version of me that spends all the time with my family and knows how to balance myself and knows how to, you know, create time management. There's the version of me that knows how to invest in myself because I know that in the long term it will be good. And there's the other version of me that's too scared to invest in myself because of the fact that I have fear around giving my money away, and I have money wounds. And then there's a version of me that doesn't have any money wounds. So it's like there are all these versions of ourselves stacked on top of each other at all different moments, and some of which we've experienced through our past, some of which we want to experience in our future, and what we're experiencing. But according to quantum physics, we are experiencing all of it right now. Not, oh my gosh, you know, that one time I invested myself 5 years ago, I lost all that money, and, you know, and I can't do that again. I'm experiencing that now. All of that I'm experiencing now in this moment right now. I'm currently taking what happened 5 years ago and experiencing now. That's what quantum physics and quantum mechanics teaches us. Everything is happening right now. So what happens when you start, let's say, showing up as a version of yourself that has the joy, that has the expansion, that does have fear, but walks with that fear, that shows up as that person now, what happens? You become an elevated frequency of abundance. And that all the things that that version of yourself has start to flood in your current reality. And this is quantum jumping. This is timeline jumping. So you got to think of it. You got to think of it as yourself as like, you know, there is, they call it, what is it? Like, oh my gosh, Einstein, E equals MC squared, right? What that means, everything has energy. Everything that has mass has energy, and energy can only attract like energy, right? So when we think of ourselves as the energetic body, not just the physical body, what our eyes cannot see, but you can feel it, the emotions and the feelings, right? Like, we got to look at it from this perspective that, like, we're not just the body. Look, I want you to take this analogy like this. It's like you're driving in your car. I have a white Jeep. I love my Jeep. She's like my California white Jeep baby. We call her Le Tonk. She has a French name because, you know, she's sexy like that. And, you know, she's my tank. So I'm driving. I'm in the driver's seat. I have my hand on the wheel. I'm looking in all the mirrors and all this kind of stuff. And what would you think I am? I would identify as the driver. I'm not identifying as the vehicle. I'm not identifying as the Jeep. But what happens in this material world when we don't see ourselves and understand that we have so much more control and so many more choices to choose, when we look at it from the energetics part of the space, that I am not my body. The vehicle, my body is the vehicle. The consciousness is the driver. So like my energetic being, I'm identifying as the person inside that hears the thoughts, that takes the action, that has, you know, that has the stories, that, you know, can shift the feelings. And my body is just the vehicle. Consciousness is the driver. My body is the vehicle, right? So when we look at it like that, our energetic body, our energy, right? Everything equals MC squared. Mass has energy. Anything tangible is energetic, and whatever frequency we vibrate on attracts more of that same frequency. And so if there are infinite parts of you, like infinity parts of you, this cake is stacked, baby. We got a stacked motherfucking cake. If I were to take everything on the energetic plane, you would understand that there's no separation. There's no separation between you and anything. If I'm only looking at energy, right? Mass has energy. Anything that's tangible has energy. It only feels separate because we are on this particular plane. We are on this particular realm. We are living in the material world. That's why it feels separate. There is, and the thing is, it's like, that's why it gets to be, there are different variations of ourselves in different dimensions. So many people think like, if I just this, I'll be this. Or if I just get that, I'll get this. Or I'll be happy when. It's like this conditional happiness. But all of it doesn't create, all it does, it creates back to a dimension of lack. There's a dimension of lack in us. There's a dimension of expansion in us. And the reason why we go back to that dimension of lack and we create more and more of the same thing over and over and over again is because of the fact that we are not playing in the realm that we can shift those timelines. Your subconscious mind, the reason why we operate on this level is because we don't really understand how the subconscious mind works. We have 60,000 thoughts a day, 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of those thoughts are recycled memories. They're just recycled memories. We haven't escaped the memory bank of our mind and step into awareness. We can't make change without awareness. So you listening to this podcast, you're getting aware. And once you become aware of this, you understand that success is an inside job. That wealth is an inside job. Right? And so it's like we gotta understand that nothing we have outside of us wasn't already attracted by some version of ourselves, by some version and some dimension, in some dimension that attracted that. So you have all these different dimensions on this infinite stacked layered cake, and you get to choose which version you want to operate with at any time. At any given time, you can literally change it, but you have to become aware of it. You have to become aware of it, that you are absolutely capable of choosing any of these versions. But often, we don't think in quantum physics or timeline shifting. We often think of it from a physical material perspective, that I am the way that I am and will always be. And that my past will only recreate my future because I live in my past in the present moment. And that creates my future in the present moment, instead of looking at it as everything is happening at once all the time. And that if I'm living in my past, I'm currently living in my present, and that I don't have to do that anymore because I know that there's a future version of me that is filled with all the joy and expansion and I'm going to actually shift to that version of me. So your prefrontal cortex is like your third eye. It's the awareness part of your brain. It's like when you get into meditation, this is the place that I normally go because this is where your intuition lies. This is where the visions happen. This is where the ideas happen. This is where your designs come through. It's like when you're creating a tattoo design, this is where it starts. You don't just have a tattoo design. You have the thought first. You have the idea first, and then you create it, right? So it's like our prefrontal cortex is all the conscious part of you. And there's so many things that happen. So think about it like this. Like, I am consciously going to pick up my phone. I'm literally I'm consciously taking my awareness brain, my prefrontal cortex, to look at my phone, to consciously pick up my phone, right? But you have to understand that the subconscious works in tandem with this. All the unconscious thoughts that are happening, like how I'm able to consciously pick up my phone, but how I'm able to unconsciously breathe, speak to you as I'm doing the thing, while I'm consciously doing something. So you're in a different part of your brain when you're in the present moment. And this is a form of meditation, using your awareness to focus on something more expansive, right? Like I can use my awareness to focus on something more expansive, to focus on a different version of myself that has all the joy, all the fulfillment, all the freedom, and step into that version. Time is only linear based off how our brain chunks up time, past, present, future. But quantum physics teaches us that all the dimensions of time exist right now. And since they all exist right now, the infinite versions of me can have everything now. So it's not a future version of me. It's infinite. It's that future, quote unquote, version of me is actually right now. And I can step into her now. So think about it like this as an analogy. It's a really cool analogy that I heard the other day from one of my teachers. She's like, think about that you are about to go pick up a new car. You're like, I'm gonna go get me a new car. For me, I'm kind of thinking about a Range Rover. I'm a liking the big trunk to fit my giant dog in there. Having a 2-seater Jeep and taking up my 2 seats in the back is kind of hard when he takes up pretty much all the space. So it'd be nice to have more seats. So I'm kind of looking at that. I'm like, okay. So I drive into a lot, right? You drive into a lot. You're about to get a new car. You drive into a lot. On one side, you have all of the old cars. You have all these old cars. They kind of have like little dings, they're like older versions of whatever car you like. This could be a CarMax or something like that. And you're looking at all the different older versions, older models of things. And then you see all the new versions with all the upgrades and, all the accoutrements like the leather and maybe like an engine that doesn't scream super loud if that's something happening to your current car or, all of these things. And so like, think about it. When you get into a new car, how does it make you feel? You're like, this feels different, especially if your current car is like kind of falling apart. Maybe you have like a few dings and things like this or whatever it might be. You just experience the new car differently, right? But there's plenty of new cars you can choose from. There's plenty of older models that you can choose from. You drive and drive away. And this is the new car you are in. Now this is the version of you that you are in. So you think about it. All of those old model of cars are old versions of you. One that suffers with pain and trauma and doesn't feel financially free and is stressed and is constantly chasing for the next dollar, for the next client, and is doing the 30-day fad diets or doing the 30-day like social media thing to grow their account in hopes that it's going to grow their clientele. Like all of these little things, which nothing wrong with them. Nothing wrong with these older model of cars. And all these newer models of cars are the ones that has like the wealth and the freedom and the success and the mindset to hold, long-term version, like length version, like looking at their business as like a lifestyle versus like, not sustainably growing in a way that feels good and nourishing and constantly evolving your creativity and, upping your prices because you are worthy, the worthiness that feels so good. These are all these other cars, right? And when you step into a new car, that's now you. You don't own that old car you just had. You just drove off with a new one. You can choose. And then you can actually come back to the lot because they give you like a 30-day, don't like it 30 days. You can come back to the car lot and choose a different car. So that's exactly the same thing that is happening when you are timeline shifting to different versions of yourself in all capacities. You can choose an old version of yourself, a comfy version. That version. You're like, well, I do trust this car. I don't want to get rid of this car because I trust this car too much. It's like, this is that. And then but when we get into the new car, we're like, ooh, this feels so good, right? So we have to understand that like you get to choose. The car lot is the different dimensions of you. It's the different versions of you at all times, all the time. So when we think about like stepping into the future version of yourself, quote unquote, you're literally stepping into that version of you absolutely right now when you choose, because you are now aware of it. You are now aware that within quantum physics teaches us that everything is happening right now, all the time. And that we get to shift into different versions of ourselves at any time we choose when we become aware of a current version that is not supporting the version we desire to be. So we shift. And that's when, you can step into that version when you're in deep meditation. This is the reason why I love somatic healing. Like I am trained as a trauma somatic therapist for somatic meditation and healing. And so it's like, I absolutely love to go in the body, healthfully go into the body to unearth these parts of ourselves, to get aware of them so we can shine the light, say, it's like to the old version of that car. You're like, thank you for serving me. I love you so much. It's like all the cars of your past. You're like, love you. Thank you for always being my tried and true. And thank you for being there always. And at the end of the day, like, I'm going to go step into this new vroom vroom, right? So it's like you step into this version of yourself in deep meditation. You release the worry, and all of a sudden you're performing differently, right? Because magnetism, manifestation, is a byproduct of the thoughts, the feelings, the behaviors, the habits, the actions, and then circling all over again. So now you're behaving like the version of yourself that has all the things, has all the wealth, the freedom, and the success, and you wave goodbye to the old version. Thank you for serving me in the season of my life, right? That's with everything. We always thank the things that happen in our life, especially when you're becoming really aware and you take radical responsibility for your own experiences and your own perceptions of what is happening right now. I take absolute full responsibility, even sometimes when I don't fucking want to, when I want to blame the other person, when I want to blame someone else on the other side of the screen for making me feel mad because they said something rude or mean, or they don't get me, or, they're projecting at me and I'm believing in their projection of what they see in me. And I'm just like, of course I want to blame someone else for that. But at the end of the day, the more that I take my own responsibility for my own experience, the more I am able to literally be that version of myself that can move through hard things with ease. And this is why language is so important. It's like, yes, that's my mantra. I move through hard things with ease. I move through hard things with ease. I say that as an I statement because that's my identity. That was not my identity maybe 6-7 months ago, but now I do. And so it's one of these, it's this aspect. And the reason why I'm able to step into that is because I feel that version first. I feel that first. I'm like, what does it feel like to do really hard things with ease? What does it feel like to show up in the online space fully unapologetically expressed as myself? What does it feel like to love myself in all different angles, even with my quirks and weirdoness? And what does that feel like? What does it feel like to feel absolutely wealthy and, being able to be generous, to be free, financially abundant, to be generous and free to give back so much? What does it feel like to serve my people, to impact more people, to call in the people that are meant for me, and to move through the hate that I get when people are not, when people do not understand me, when people want to throw rocks? Can I move through those hard things with ease? And can I love on those people as well? And love on myself and forgive myself whenever I fall prey, right? Fall into a different version of myself that takes it up the butthole. So this is all, it's happening now. You absolutely get to step into that version of yourself now. And you always get the choice. And so it's not necessarily just about what you are doing, right? It's who you are being. The journey is meant, business is a process. Life is a process. Life is like a journey, right? It's like, it's not what you gain from it, it's who you become from it. And the more that we can focus and really step into that iteration of ourselves that focuses on that part of us that is like, I want to focus and look at this as a journey that is serving me as I serve others in the way that I fucking love. That's what's going to move you. That's what's going to start to get you to shift those thoughts, feelings, beliefs, behaviors, actions. And then now you're no longer another version of yourself. You are this newer version, and you can have a beautiful uncoupling with the old version as you rebirth this, birth this other side of you. And so that's all timeline jumping, and I hope that that's supportive for you. And if you are really desiring to kind of step into meditation more, really step into emotional mastery and self-mastery and bravery, because it takes a lot of bravery to become this aware and to take this radical responsibility and to have the practical tools in order to move you forward. I highly, highly recommend you come join me in the ARC if you aren't already there. My members in the ARC, it's the place to start stepping from just quote unquote, just the tattoo artist to the spiritual entrepreneur, and starting to play a different game in life and business than just in the material plane, and starting to utilize the emotional and the energetic playing fields that a lot of people don't use. And that just gives you just like such a leg up in life. And I'm not going to lie, definitely in business. Definitely in business. So I love you guys. I hope this podcast episode was super supportive. If you loved it, please rate it. And if you want to screenshot it, you can send it to me. I love to send gifts over to people that do that. Or if you just want to send me a sweet note that this really resonated with you via DMs on IGs, all that kind of good stuff. Other ways to work with me you can find in the show notes. And I'm sending you guys all my love.